What is a credit union? It's a cooperative, like a food co-op or a housing co-op, but the members share money. Credit unions offer the same services you'll find in a bank, but they're different from banks. First, credit unions are owned by their members, and credit unions are not for profit. Any money the credit union makes goes right back to the members in the form of low fees and good rates. To learn more, you can go to STCU's blog at stcumoney.org.
Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeese. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeese, and we're fortunate to be here in the studio with Tim Mitrovich from 10 Capital Investments. Tim, thank you.
My pleasure.
Let's start out, as we normally do on this show, at my curiosity with how you got to where you are. Everybody takes a different path. Everybody has different passions and interests of why they get into business. How did you get into the investment business? What road did you take?
Yeah, well, I guess I found it, and then I came back, and they're a little bit different answers. Originally, it was just, blessed to have a lot of great mentors, and I was decent at math, and so a friend knew a friend that hooked me up with a summer internship, and I went from there. But, in terms of coming back to it and what I love about the business now as we do it, it affords you the ability to see in relatively short order the good work you're doing for people and their feedback. From an intellectual standpoint, though, you got to follow it all, right? I mean, it's about probably as much about psychology as anything. Certainly world affairs, markets.
Well, and anybody that reads the Wall Street Journal, I think there almost is a sense that you just touched on of, can I take it all in? When you read it on a daily basis, it's constantly coming at you. And I think in your position, for clients' sake, you want to be abreast of everything that's happening. Do you feel like that's just...
Yeah, you do your best. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And then you, at least for our part, I always tell people, it's not just us, it's our network. I mean, rather than worrying about just margins or P&Ls and all the rest of that, we really have put our focus on doing right by the client, building a great firm. And so that means investing within that firm and getting great partners who can be out there synthesizing information, at least in part, on your behalf. But
how many folks are in your firm?
13 right now.
13 right now. And when you started, did you start by bringing the whole group on all at once, or at the very origins? How did it start out?
So at my former firm, I was kind of the guy behind at least I think in the perception of some of my colleagues, behind the door doing God only knows what. And but they had a sense for it. It was a little bit different than kind of that classic broker approach. And finally, one of the older gentlemen came down and, paraphrasing here, was like, what are you up to? And I think one of my clients wants what you're doing. And so that began a relationship with that client that eventually spawned into working with not only all that advisors private wealth, but all of his clients. And
isn't it interesting how one thing seems to always just lead to the next, and you can't necessarily foresee it. It's almost like that book, I think, The Alchemist, that you don't necessarily know why you're doing step one, but all of a sudden you're at step 5, and it seems like you can figure out why the dots were connected.
Now you look back on it, it makes sense. At the time, you were certainly waiting for that break to happen from here or there, and believed in what we were doing. But it was just me in a room and a handful of clients. But so that eventually was different enough that we decided to head out on our own. Relatively small group initially, but like a lot of communities, it's a small community, not only in Spokane but the Northwest. We have one advisor in Seattle right now. And people reached out and said, hey, I've heard kind of what you're doing, what your approach is. I'm not really a money manager of sorts. I just like working with the clients, but I feel like they're not getting enough on that front, and I want someone to work with. So, everybody's come for slightly different reasons, but that's probably a common thread to all of it. And so, we've grown up to be for the time being, a group of 13, although I think we've got a few more coming.
Well, and you mentioned kind of a common thread. I think you're getting a reputation for being known as the hands-on approach with 13 individuals in our community as well as in Seattle. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think when folks are looking for an investment advisor, there are choices where you could reach out to some multinational in New York or this, that, or another thing in San Francisco. But I think you've really taken the approach to the hands-on, being involved here in our community. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, because I do think that's a definite plus and something different within the investment community that's not necessarily
in terms of how we're working with clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, always when clients come in position that, ask whomever you're talking to or who you might be currently working with, why are you how you are? Why are you shaped the way you are? And for us, we realized pretty quickly, we need to have half a dozen to a dozen great advisors, each with their own expertise. So there's some people in our office that like to be planning focused, some in no insurance. Again, we just do life and disability type stuff. And then, of course, money managers and analysts. Right. But it really is, there's a lot of people who call themselves a team. It's become a popular notion.
Collaboration.
But at least in our industry, mostly it's just people sharing an office.
Yeah. Almost an office share mentality.
Yeah. Where for us, it really is, hey, whether or not you do or don't have the capability or the ability to keep up with all the different aspects of someone's financial life, and I'd argue that would be very difficult for anyone. They're certainly not all your passions. And what we wanted to have for our clients is certainly they have their main point of contact as they might be used to, but whoever they get to engage with, directly or indirectly, is handling that aspect, and it's an area of passion for them and excitement. And at least that's one of the things that makes us different.
But then I think you're describing it really well. There's that sense of overlap within the office. It isn't just an office share. You might be the direct contact, or one of your colleagues is, for a specific passion area, but then if the client is needing something that's just outside, there's that overlap where you'd have a colleague work with them.
Yeah,
I think that's a good synergy.
Yeah, so many, each of those, those are kind of the three big areas, but there are many others, technology maybe being a fourth, so investments, insurance, planning, technology, that we work with clients. If a client's engaging with the firm, and it happens all the time. I run down the hall, and as you know, some of my colleagues and say, "Hey, Jake, get in here. I need to pick your brain on some of the newest issues around Social Security or whatever." I'm running the money. I'm not necessarily keeping up with changes in Social Security or Medicare.
I think there's two parts to that. Not only does multiple parts, but not only does it benefit the client in terms of the information they're getting, but I think it adds quite a bit of just office enjoyment, that collaboration in terms of reaching out and throwing ideas off each other. I like that within our own law office.
Yeah.
And speaking of law, I think it's maybe not entirely unique, but you have a legal background, went to the University of Washington Law School. Tell us about that in terms of what was your focus going into law school. You have the mathematics background as well, but going to law school, high percentage of folks have a vision of here's what I'm going to do in the prosecutor's office, public defender's office, private practice, nonprofit. You have the math background and end up in financial investments. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I kind of always knew I'd get out.
So you knew that going in?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you think that was going to, if you knew that going in, what piece of the puzzle did you think that would add to your arsenal?
Yeah, so just real quick, I Whitworth University grad, college at the time I was there, and I was a Rhodes Scholar finalist, and the board that had been put together at Whitworth to help me through that process was like, hey, look, you need to go get your law degree. They kind of knew I'd be doing something more transactional and business related, but it's such a huge part of the language.
Right. I would agree with that.
To have that skill set, to be able to speak that language, not to mention, as you know, the ability to create more cohesive arguments. And again, in our part, it's not so much an argument as really helping a client understand in a very, like you would a jury, I guess.
Communication style.
Yeah, really, hey, 1, 2, 3, this is what we're going to get through. And there's, to our point earlier about all the information, there's more out there than we can all comprehend. So how are you going to synthesize through all of it to get down? So that was really their point, both in terms of skill sets and experience. And so, these people never steered me wrong. I took their advice. I went to UW. Once I got in, the competitive juices grabbed hold a little bit, and maybe lost track of the big picture here or there in terms of, okay, I'm going to go get a job at a great firm, and I did in terms of
you
their
did
skill
do that.
sets.
You worked in a large legal firm for a while.
Yep. Yeah, for 2 years. And again, kept the business bent to it, doing mergers and acquisitions and contract law.
I think it'd be hard to argue that wasn't a really important piece of your puzzle in terms of the perspective that you'd get in a Seattle large firm, seeing the transactional perspective, the M&A, which in essence now when you're doing financial investments, you're seeing it through a different channel. But to have that perspective, I think, is very important.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is just M&A deals on a much smaller level, right? And we're buying little pieces of companies just like they did the big. And you don't want it to. There's certainly a lot of great people who are doing their best to do great work, but again, one of the unique aspects of our industry is you don't need any experience to get in. I mean, you need to pass a test that takes a few months to study for and really has no bearing on whether you're going to be good or bad at your job.
That's interesting. Maybe speaking to the barriers to entry, are you arguing the barriers to entry isn't potentially high enough?
Yeah, no, it's not.
That it could be higher.
I mean, there's, again, I'm not going to say it means that you can't do good work, but I know a lot of people in the industry that, they never even, for whatever reason, my grandfather, my mentor, one of my key people in my life didn't graduate from college, but no economics background, no math background, no planning background. I mean, and they might be good at sales,
right?
They might be good at persuading people, and therefore they can get clients. But I've always, and the firm's always put its emphasis on, you're going to do good work once you get them. And I don't know, most industries predicated on bottom line type thinking and just getting them in, not necessarily thinking through what you're going to do once they're in. So,
well, we're going to take a short break, but a piece that I really do want to talk about in terms of the financial services industry, and you touched on this earlier, that there's such a plethora of information coming at the client from all directions, and how you do synthesize that information in the software and the technology aspect of the investment business. Let's take a short break and come right back.
Sure.
In touch, online all the time. SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Rob Curley, editor of the Spokesman Review.
Spokane isn't really like anything I've ever seen. I love that we're one of the smallest cities in America with its own symphony. I love that we host the biggest 3-on-3 tournament, that we have this huge road race. I love that the highest rated hotel in all of Washington is in Spokane. I love that on any given night within one block, you can have 3 Grammy winners playing. I've never seen anything like it.
Online, in print, the Spokesman Review. Subscribe to the experience.
Debt is a lot more common than most people realize. 20% of American households spend more than they make. It is also possible to break free of debt. No matter where you are, there are some habits you can develop to help you live debt-free. Pay down your existing debt as fast as possible. Pay with cash when you can. Stash cash for emergencies. Ask yourself if you really need to purchase something, and take some new tactics to earn more if you can. Learn more about living debt-free at stcumoney.org.
Last year alone, Avista customers saved over 53 million kilowatt hours of energy. How? By caulking their windows, programming their thermostats, replacing their incandescent light bulbs with LEDs. Simple things, really. But the energy they saved was enough to power more than 4,000 homes for an entire year. Way to save, everyone. Way to save. Find your way to save at avistautilities.com.
Welcome back to Business Talks. I'm here with Tim Mitrovich of 10 Capital. Thank you. Right before the break, we were chatting about the unbelievable amounts of financial and psychological information coming to either one of your clients or to your firm, whether it be the Wall Street Journal, massive amounts of media, news sources. How does your firm assimilate that information in a way, via software or otherwise, to make it productive to utilize for the client?
Yeah, so, for us, a lot of it's third-party partners that are getting us information, but we really keep our focus on, we're there to run money. We're there to help people with some of their wealth preservation needs. But one of the biggest things we're there to help people do is create a framework for making financial decisions.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, just understanding the trade-offs. And when people come in and really making sure we're engaging all the parties involved. I mean, it's not atypical. There's lots of articles written about one of the spouses won't even show up to the meeting, right? Because your typical person sitting there telling you why you should buy Coca-Cola and sell Procter & Gamble or buy this mutual fund or get in this annuity or whatever the case may be. And the clients will leave and not have any idea, am I okay?
Right.
So we've really flipped the script, really come back, we don't have any proprietary products. We don't answer to any national headquarters or shareholders or anything like that of, do you really know what your biggest goals are? Everyone has one of three money minds. So money can do one of three things, as psychologists point out, safety, provide happiness, or fulfill a commitment to others. And for each of us, when you have that dollar in your hand and you're trying to decide, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah, what of this hierarchy? That's interesting.
But people haven't really been trained or taught or worked with, nor let alone had a technology with their advisor to help them understand, well, who am I? So we walk through a quiz with clients to kind of help them identify, how do you think of it?
You bring up a good point, though, when you say you're walking through with the client. We deal with this as well with our clients, that who are you speaking to? Are you speaking to the husband? Are you speaking to the wife? Who is the client? Is it the group? How are the decisions made within that household? And so you might go through a whole rendition of that framework and might not be talking to the decision maker, so to speak.
Yeah, well, and we really want to have both, assuming it is a couple, and have them both go through, identify how they think about money, what are their individual goals, how do those compare to the others, right? I mean, I think this is something that any two parties can acknowledge. You don't see things perfectly eye to eye, and then what are going to be the 5 things we're really going to prioritize? Once we go through that and a plan, now we start to get into product. And people ask me, hey, in 10 seconds, tell me why your firm is different than anyone else. I don't know what we're going to do for you when I sit down. I mean, just about everywhere else you go, they know what they're looking to push.
I don't know if our listeners, I think the point you're making right there is actually huge. The proprietary product piece is substantial, and might touch on that a little bit more, because when you say when you walk in, there's a whole slew of products that the individual might be going to sell no matter what your facts are, because they only have their own product. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke with people, the more they advertise on TV, the higher the likelihood they got something to push. Ads are expensive, right? So, yeah, they either have their in-house stock pickers and they take an extra, spread or fee to put you into that stuff, or they've got some insurance products that they want to push that are, house products. So, again, with very few exceptions, if it's a national or large regional firm, that applies. For us, it's, we've made it a point of not only emphasis but pride to go out and find a great group of people to work with, and whatever's best for the client we can do, and we're not paid differently to do one thing versus the other, and that's more rare than people think.
Well, it's truly incentivizing per the actual client needs versus the conflict of interest of a potential proprietary product. And if I could, you can speak to it if you want, but we spoke in the last couple of weeks on one of our shows about the issue of fiduciary duties. And I'm used to the fiduciary duty in the legal world, where the client obviously is of all concern. It's everything about the client in terms of confidentiality, conflict of interest, full disclosure. There's some talk within the financial world of raising the bar, if you will, for retirement investment advisors. What do you think about that? Because I think someone from the outside looking in would say, do they not have that already? But
there's a classic moment, and granted, it's easy to pick on the super big boys, but there was a CEO of Goldman Sachs after the financial crisis, and they're like, well, don't you have a duty to do what's in your client's interest? He's like, no. I mean, which was legally correct.
It is legally correct, but that's what I think shocks most individuals.
What I'd say, though, it's good in intent. I mean, the biggest abuses in our industries are around insurance. Yeah. And there's nothing inherently wrong with insurance, but I remember sitting down with a lady one time and inherited a couple $1 million and said, hey, if you hire me today, would you be willing to go buy me a $100,000 car? Are you crazy? I said, no, I'm not really going to ask you to do that. But if you, go into this thing that the other person was pitching, you're going to have over $100,000 worth of commissions. I said, I don't know what they're going to go do with it, but you get my point. She's like, I had no idea.
Disclosure.
Like, of course you didn't have any idea, right? So that's where I think some of the good things to deal well. What I'd tell clients though is, look, it's pretty easy. If they got shareholders, it's going to be very difficult even for good people to act in your best interest. Again, this is just my opinion,
right?
Because they're answering to someone else besides you. So that's one thing. But I would, I think this is an important point out that for a lot of conflicts of interest are usually talked about in a monetary standpoint, and for good reason, because of the fees and commissions and in-house products. The industry gets really adept at repackaging them to confuse people. But the other thing is, I talk to people who are in the industry, and they don't even want to come into work, or they have to wear pants to work. Can I just wear shorts, or can I do this? Because I'm by myself right now and I can do whatever I want. And to me, that's a conflict of interest too, because you're saying, hey, you're willing to compromise your client experience to be on your own for what your payout is, or how you want to dress, or how you want to operate, as opposed to really asking yourself, am I part of a group, or do I have the ability to service my clients at the highest level? And that's another thing that I think people should be mindful of.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's a great answer. I'm going to circle a little bit back to when we were talking about the technology in terms of assimilating the amazing amounts of information. As a firm here in Spokane with a presence in Seattle, what are the costs? I don't necessarily mean an actual number, but the monetary capital investment for you as a firm to have that type of software? Is it via licensing? Is it pulling down the software for ownership? How's that work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, there's certainly some technology components to it that you license, but it can range on a given year between $50,000 and $100,000.
Yeah.
Again, if you're doing it the right way. There's a lot of people who say, well, what if I don't want my clients to have all this stuff? Can you give me a better payout? I'm talking about advisors that have approached us about joining the firm. Like, no, it's most important that we
information
do
is
the
king.
right thing by the client. The other thing, though, is just, once upon a time, you needed to have these big in-house analytic shops, and we've got 15 or 500 CFAs on staff. One thing, I wouldn't want everybody under one roof anyway. I really want diverse thought, and so now, like a lot of things that technology facilitates, we've got analytic groups in Connecticut and New York, and California that we subscribe to.
You essentially can contract out for that information.
Yeah, you can contract it out. And so by extension, we have hundreds of CFAs from different companies who get us for a fraction of what it would cost for one employee, and we can get great ideas from across the spectrum. And so that's, again, one of those neat things that technology's facilitated.
Yeah, I actually think that makes a lot of sense. And from a cost-benefit analysis, not only for the firm, but for the client, it makes sense. You have access to unbelievable amounts of information really at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Where do you see, you guys started the firm in 2012?
Yep.
Where do you see the trajectory of where you are today? Where do you see yourself going in 5 to 10 years? More of a presence in Seattle, presence in Los Angeles, stick to Spokane?
Yeah,
what do you think?
We've got clients all around the country, but no, I to be honest, the best compliment our firm's ever been paid, and fortunately, it's happened on more than one occasion. But I remember one lady's comment in specific where she walked in and happened to be on our client advisory board, and we were asking people what's the thing they like best about the firm, and what's one thing you'd like us to change, improve, something like that. And
that's impressive that you asked that question.
Yeah,
actually.
No, every day.
Because sometimes you don't want the answer necessarily as a business owner.
No, he gave you some good feedback.
Yeah.
But she said, my favorite part about 10 Capital is when I walk in, everybody acts like they've been waiting for me to show up. She was really talking about that warmth. To your point about those ancillary effects of working together as a team, is everybody knows and cares about the clients of the firm. And I think I'd be naive to think we could become a 50, 100-person shop and maintain that. So, there are some for us to do it the way we want to do, but again, we don't have shareholders. We don't have some artificial growth metric.
And nor do you want that.
No, we defend the culture is the biggest thing we talk about, and that is a culture that remains client-focused.
That's an interesting line you just used there.
These ladies, and gentlemen that have hired us, that they feel like, hey, we've got a home, we're part of this. This is bigger than one person. A lot of our client events are around that same, really creating a sense of community. It's been cool to see clients meet at an event and become friends. And I take a a lot of pride and a lot of joy in seeing that as well.
Well, I think I originally met you actually at a trivia night of one of those events you guys put on, and I'm still a bit put out that we came in second.
You guys were so close. It was a great showing for your first year.
We've been training in the off season though. We're going to come back strong.
Okay,
we're going to come back. We
hope so.
We wanted that trophy.
Yeah, it's a hideously wonderful thing.
Well, in all seriousness, though, the events that you have created to create that community and that collaboration, and specifically, I think, the line you just said a little bit ago, defending the culture.
Yeah.
I think any business owner, including our law firm or investment firm or plumbing or electrical outfit, you can get caught up in kind of the MBA type logic of aren't we supposed to grow for growth's sake rather than potentially, as you just said, defending the culture.
I spent most of my life learning the hard way that you shouldn't shove square pegs in round holes and trying to do things just for sake of doing them.
Yeah.
And if there's anything I've learned, it's to really prioritize what's important, but it, not to get back too far afield, but it's the same thing we want to do with clients. Yeah, we'd like to have everything. Right?
Yep.
I mean, innately, that's our instinct.
Yep.
But what's most important? If we have to get 2 or 3 things right for you as an individual or for us as a firm, what are those
Let's
things?
start
So,
there.
I don't think we can get too big. I don't think we can go to too many different places. But we can do a lot of things, and a lot of the client events, whether it's with professionals such as yourself or clients, is, it's a highly personal business that has always treated people in a very impersonal fashion.
Well, and when you're talking about somebody's money, their life savings, their family, what's more important?
How do you do that? I mean, you're getting in behind, and again, a lot of people take this for granted. Every time I have a new client, I thank them for the honor of having the chance because, I never want it to be lost on me what they're letting me into. But for a lot of these, if you don't have that chance from time to time to engage with them outside of the typical review or in the office experience, you miss something. And we really want not only to know our clients, but we want them to felt known. Because when tough times happen for them or tough times happen in the market, they're not going to believe our advice. They're not going to believe we care if they don't feel like they've actually been heard and known. And so that's a huge part and something I think, anybody in my line of work should value.
Tim, 10 Capital, I think you're doing it. I think you're doing it right. I appreciate you coming in. I think we could chat for hours. I hope you would come back and chat with us
Happy
again.
to.
What's the best way for folks to get a hold of you and find out more about 10 Capital?
Probably 10capital.com. It's got all our contact information on there and a little bit more about who we are and how we like to do business with the clients. So they're welcome. tencapital.com.
Perfect. I'm impressed. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.
If you know what amortization, bridge loans, and HELOCs are, well, you're pretty smart. The financial world is brimming with acronyms and other confusing terms, which can make it harder to make decisions about spending, saving, and borrowing money. If you could use an introduction, go to STCU's financial education blog at stcumoney.org. You'll find out whether you've been amortizing all along, and the experts at the credit union will translate some of the other important financial concepts too.
Snoring can disrupt marriages and cause serious health problems. Call Sleep Better Northwest first, the experts in dental sleep medicine. Their medically approved, custom-fit oral appliances will have both you and your partner sleeping better and being more productive throughout your day. Don't wait. Snoring and sleep apnea can signal potential strokes or heart attacks. For more information, visit needbettersleepnow.com and download our health guide today. Sleep Better Northwest, the experts in dental sleep medicine.